Hello everyone. It's James again. And today I want to do a video on how the narcissist trains you to beg them back. This is so important, as I've seen others talk about how they were at one point or another when they were children put outside of the house. And after hours and hours and hours of begging, they were let back in. Here's the thing. In most, not all, but most adult situations where one adult is begging another adult to be back in their life, this pattern more than likely started in childhood, and is usually as a result of what I just outlined. I've heard stories from both men and women talking about how for some reason or another they were locked outside, or they were put in a closet, or some version of, only to beg and beg and beg, to be either let back in the room, or back in the house. And this sadly reinforces this I'm worthless behavior in such a child. And when they have their first so-called friendships, when things go wrong, and one of these so-called friends isn't treating them with decency or respect, instead of letting this so-called friend go, they try to find out why this so-called friend is acting in such a way. Why this so-called friend stole their candy or their toy, instead of understanding this isn't their friend, and this person is a thief and should no longer be dealt with. You see, narcissist parents love to do this to their children as a way to teach their children to always be loyal to them no matter what hell this so-called parent puts them through. So they will manufacture an argument the narcissist parent is truly to blame for, but will turn it around to being the child's fault somehow, telling the child to sit on the porch until they say so. Meanwhile the rest of the family is inside, eating, watching television, having fun, or doing whatever, and the young child is outside for hours in the cold or heat. And the narcissist knows at some point this child is going to break, and they will start to pound on the door begging to be let back in. Soon the tears will start to flow, and the narcissist family member will now get their narcissist supply they've been craving. But something much deeper has happened. This child is being taught he or she is somehow worthless. There is something wrong with them. They aren't deserving of love. And any love they get, they must beg for. And this is where many narcissistic abuse survivors will say, once they learned about narcissism, they realized they had so many narcissists around them, friends that weren't real friends, and so on and so forth. Because you see, healthy parents teach their children how to stay away from bad people and how to have boundaries. If a child steals from them, they learn to never talk to or deal with that child again. And in this they learn self-esteem, self-worth, and self-love. And when someone kicks them to the curb, so to speak, they might think, okay, fine, no need to deal with them anymore. But someone that grew up in the home with a narcissist parent or parents, they were taught from an early age by being put out of the house or the room, or extended periods of time. So the mental break would start and the begging would soon begin. And they don't just do this once. They would do this over and over and over again, inviting you back into their life, only to banish you once again. And because this has happened so many times, this victim will fall back to their default programming, and that's trying to find out why, and talking to this so-called person about all the wrongs they have done to them, not knowing they are feeding them narcissistic supply. You see, narcissist parents want supply from their children for life, and they don't want them to grow a brain, to where they leave never to return. So they trauma bond them, they put them through hell, then provide fake love, then they put them through hell again, and they keep the cycle moving along. All the while the child is begging for love. Please, please let me back in. I'm cold. How many children have begged these words to evil parents? Now this can go another way. I've mentioned before, this very thing happened to the deceased entertainer Prince. And in a documentary, they did a reenactment of a young prince, Being told by a family member his father would let him come back home if he called him and said he was sorry and asked to come back. So little Prince calls his father on a payphone, begging, pleading and crying, only to have this father not let Prince back in the home. This is where Prince went to live with other relatives, never to live with either parent again. And it's said, he made a vow to not need anyone, and to become so successful at his music, he wouldn't have to rely on others. And though many people talk about the perverted nature of some of his music mixed with religion, when you understand the nature of the house he was raised in, you then understand how that sadly reflected in his music. However, when you listen to When Doves Cry, or Purple Rain, you hear the pain of a narcissistically abused child crying for help. At least that's my opinion. And instead of Prince becoming a lifelong beggar, he was willing to do whatever it took, using shock-style dress and music and a persona, to never be in a situation where he had to beg anyone for anything again. It's truly sad. But for most of us, we went the other way, becoming lifelong beggars, begging our abuser to just love us this time and tell us the truth this time. And this was all taught by our narcissist mother or father, because they wanted us to be a source of supply to them for their entire lives. And as a result, every friend we made, and every relationship we entered into was with a narcissist, even if we noticed the red flags at the beginning, because we've been trained to stick around and beg for love, instead of trusting our instincts and running the other way. Now, can this happen to someone that was raised in a good home? Can they find themselves years later taken for such an abusive ride by a narcissist? Yes. This can happen. However, such a narcissist will bring about this process a lot slower and more covertly, to slowly train this person out of thinking how they normally think, and into self-doubt, and into getting them addicted to such a toxic person through long periods of love bombing and short bursts of mistreatment, and putting them out of the house, so to speak. The only reason why this might be problematic for this to go on with someone that was raised in a good home, and someone that has good friends, is at some point, these family members and friends might come to the aid of the victim to help them out of such a situation. But with that being said, is it still possible to happen? Yes. It's all trauma bonding. But it's the worst when it's your mother or father. A child just believes this is their mother or father, thus they must love me. So when they are put out of the house or banished in one way or another, they are confused, and they sit and try to figure out this mess in their heads, as to what they did wrong, or how they can make it somehow better, not knowing there's nothing that can make these so-called people stop doing the evil they are doing, and that what is being done on purpose, to trauma bond this child to their parent, to always be in a position of begging this so-called parent for love. And sadly, since this is what they are being brainwashed with at an early age, it affects every single part of their lives, especially how they pick friends and how they pick life partners. I too remember being young and at a payphone begging to be let into the house just like Prince. Eventually I was let back in, but not after long periods of me crying and begging. And this happened a lot. And I do mean a lot. So then I look at my so-called friends, and of course Susie, my ex, and I see where I was trained to beg these evil people. Beg these evil people to let me be a part of their life. When they would do wrong, it was always, let's try to talk to them and find out why. Now my approach is, who cares why? How do I get the heck away from them? Think about how many people get cheated on, go back for more, because they were trained this very way. Instead of saying, you know, I don't care why you cheated on me, but what I do know is I'm out of here. Goodbye. However, many don't do this. They try to talk to this person. They cry, and they become vulnerable to giving this so-called person another chance, and another and another. All the while it is you, the victim, begging and pleading a disordered, so-called person to be a part of your life. It's just sick. So how do you fix this? You have to go back to the beginning. Where did all of this begging business begin in your life? Who trained you? And how did they train you? Go through it step by step, bit by bit. And you will start to see how you were groomed and trained by this person or that person in your life to be a lifelong beggar and trauma bond victim. And once you can connect these dots, you can then become a survivor. And as we know, being a survivor is a one-day-at-a-time process, with never-ending self-betterment. Well, that's all I have for now. I do hope all of you found this video helpful. I do appreciate your support and subscription. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, as we are trying to reach a starting goal of 200,000 subscribers. And please don't forget to like, as the more likes videos like this get, the more of a chance this type of content can be pushed to the front of YouTube. Also, don't forget to click the little bell to be notified each and every time I upload a new video. And if you want to support even more, you can do so by the way of Patreon. And for those of you that have already done so, I humbly thank you. With that said, let's continue to pray for wisdom. Let's continue to pray for strength. And let's continue to pray for courage. And until next time, bye for now. And be good to yourself.